If you own shares of Travere Therapeutics yesterday, you're probably not having a great week. The biotech company's stock absolutely crashed on Tuesday, losing roughly one-third of its value in a single trading session. We are talking about a $2 billion company that just evaporated hundreds of millions in market cap in hours. What happened? The FDA happened, and if you're invested in biotech stocks or thinking about it, this is a masterclass in regulatory risk that you absolutely need to understand. I'm going to break down everything that happened with Travere Therapeutics, explain what the FDA is actually concerned about, and most importantly, what this means for investors moving forward. Let's dive in. The crash explained. So let's start with what we know. On Tuesday, shares of Travere Therapeutics, ticker symbol TVTX, dropped approximately 33%. That's not a typo, one-third of the company's value, gone in a day. The catalyst? The company disclosed that they recently received additional information requests from the FDA to further characterize the clinical benefit of Filspari. Now, if you're not familiar with biotech investing, that might sound like bureaucratic jargon, but in the pharmaceutical world, when the FDA asks for additional information during a drug review, that's a massive red flag for investors. Here's why. The FDA doesn't just casually ask for more data when they request additional information. It typically means they're not convinced by the evidence presented. They have questions, they have concerns, and most critically for investors, it means delays. Travere did respond to the FDA's questions, and those responses are currently under review, but the market didn't wait around to see how the agency would respond. Investors hit the sell button, hard. Company background before we go further. Let's talk about who Travere Therapeutics actually is. This is a San Diego-based biopharmaceutical company that focuses on rare diseases, particularly rare kidney disorders. They're not exactly a household name, but in the rare disease space, they're significant players. With a market capitalization of around $2 billion before this crash and obviously less now, Travere is what we call a mid-cap biotech company. They're not a giant like Pfizer or Johnson & Johnson, but they're also not a tiny startup. They have infrastructure, they have research programs, and they have a lot riding on regulatory approvals. The company's entire investment thesis hinges on their ability to bring treatments to market for diseases that currently have limited or no treatment options. This is common in the rare disease pharmaceutical space, high risk, but potentially high reward if you can successfully navigate the regulatory process and commercialize your drug. And that brings us to the drug at the center of this controversy, Filspari. Understanding FSGS now. To understand why this matters so much, we need to talk about the disease that Filspari is designed to treat. It's called FSGS, which stands for focal segmental glomerulosclerosis. Yeah, that's a mouthful. FSGS is a rare kidney disease where scar tissue develops on the glomeruli. These are the tiny filters in your kidneys that clean your blood. When these filters get damaged, your kidneys can't do their job properly. Protein leaks into your urine, and over time this can progress to complete kidney failure. This is a serious condition. We're talking about a disease that can lead to dialysis or kidney transplant. And here's the kicker, it's a leading cause of kidney failure, particularly in younger adults and children. Now here's why Travere's drug is so important. According to the company, if approved, Filspari would be the first and only medication specifically approved for FSGS. Think about that. We're talking about a leading cause of kidney failure with no FDA-approved targeted treatment. That's exactly the kind of unmet medical need that biotech companies dream about addressing. For patients suffering from FSGS, Filspari represents hope. For investors, it represents a potential blockbuster drug in a market with zero competition. At least, that's the theory, the drug Filspari. So what exactly is Filspari? The generic name is sparsentan, and it's what's called a dual endothelin-angiotensin receptor antagonist. Without getting too deep into the pharmacology, it essentially works by targeting two different pathways that contribute to kidney damage and protein loss. Travere has been developing this drug for years, conducting clinical trials. To prove that it's both safe and effective, they've invested massive amounts of money and time into this program. And up until this week, the path to approval seemed relatively clear. The company submitted their application to the FDA for approval. In biotech, this is called a new drug application, or NDA. The FDA then reviews all the data, the clinical trials, the safety information, the manufacturing processes, everything. And if they're satisfied, they grant approval and the drug can be marketed and sold. But here's what happened. Somewhere in that review process, the FDA looked at the data and said, "We need more information to characterize the clinical benefit." That's the exact wording Travere used in their disclosure. Travere has already submitted responses to the FDA's questions, and those are currently under review. But the fact that these questions were asked at all is what spooked investors. Why the FDA wants more data, so why would the FDA ask for additional information? Well, there are several possibilities, and it's important to understand that we don't have the full picture here. Travere's disclosure was pretty vague, which is typical. Companies don't usually air all the details of their FDA communications publicly. But based on the language they used further characterize the clinical benefit, we can make some educated guesses. The FDA might be questioning whether the benefits shown in clinical trials are clinically meaningful enough. Maybe the drug showed statistical improvement, but the FDA wants to understand if that translates to real-world benefit for patients. They might be concerned about the durability of the effect. Does the drug keep working long-term, or do benefits diminish over time? They might want more data on specific patient populations, or they might have questions about the trial design or endpoints. Here's the reality of drug development. Proving that a drug works is incredibly complex. You need to show not just that it does something, but that it does something meaningful, that it's safe, and that the benefits outweigh the risks. The FDA's job is to be skeptical, to ask tough questions, and to make sure that any drug that reaches patients actually helps them. For biotech companies, this is the most nerve-wracking part of the entire development process. You can spend a decade and billions of dollars developing a drug, only to have the FDA request additional data that could delay approval by months or years, or in worst-case scenarios, result in rejection. This is regulatory risk, and it's exactly what we're seeing play out with Travere right now. So what does this mean for investors? Well, if you're holding TVTX stock, you're already feeling the pain. A 33% drop in a single day is brutal, and the question now is whether this is a buying opportunity or a sign of worse things to come. Here's the bull case. Filspari is still under review. The FDA asking questions doesn't mean automatic rejection. Travere has submitted responses, and if those responses satisfy the agency, approval could still happen. If and when approval comes, Travere would have the first and only FDA-approved treatment for FSGS, which could be genuinely valuable both for patients and for the company's bottom line. Here's the bear case. Additional FDA questions often mean delays, and delays mean burning cash while generating no revenue. There is also the possibility that the FDA's concerns couldn't be adequately addressed with the existing data, which could mean needing additional clinical trials. That would be a devastating outcome for the company and investors. The reality is, we're in a waiting period. The FDA will review Travere's responses and make a decision. That could happen in weeks or months. We don't have a clear timeline. This is why biotech investing is so risky, unlike investing in a stable, profitable company where you can analyze earnings and cash flow. Biotech companies are often betting everything on binary outcomes. The drug gets approved or it doesn't. The stock either soars or crashes. There's not a lot of middle ground. The Travere Therapeutics situation is a perfect example of the risks and rewards in biotech investing. For patients with FSGS, Filspari represents genuine hope for a disease with limited treatment options. For investors, it represents both massive opportunity and substantial risk. The key takeaway here is that regulatory approval is never guaranteed, no matter how promising a drug might seem. The FDA's job is to be rigorous, and that rigor can make or break companies. If you're invested in TVTX or considering it, you need to ask yourself, am I comfortable with this level of uncertainty? Do I understand the science? Do I have the risk tolerance for a binary outcome? I'll be watching this story closely and will update you as we learn more about the FDA's decision. In the meantime, remember, this is not financial advice. Do your own research, understand the risks, and never invest money you can't afford to lose, especially in volatile biotech stocks. What do you think about the Travere situation? Are you bullish or bearish on TVTX? Let me know in the comments below. If you found this analysis helpful, smash that like button and subscribe for more biotech and pharmaceutical industry news. Hit the notification bell so you don't miss any updates. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one with subscribe button related videos.